for the first time. The nurses quickly cleaned Leo and wrapped him in a soft blanket before placing him in Elena's arms. She gazed down at her son, noticing his thick, dark hair and tiny, delicate features. But when she looked into his eyes, something unusual caught her attention. Leo's eyes were a deep, intense shade of blue, unlike anything she had ever seen. There was something almost otherworldly about them, but she dismissed it as the wonder of new life. She smiled, brushing a finger over his cheek as she whispered, "He's perfect." Michael leaned in to get a closer look at his son. He too was struck by the intensity of Leo's eyes, but like Elena, he thought nothing of it. They were both too lost in the joy of the moment to notice the strange glimmer in Leo's gaze. As the nurse returned to check on the baby, she smiled warmly and reached down to take him for his first round of routine tests. "He's a beautiful baby boy," she said, her voice full of kindness. But as she gently lifted Leo from Elena's arms, the baby opened his eyes wide, and the nurse gasped. Leo's eyes locked with the nurse's, and within seconds, her expression twisted from one of warmth to pure terror. Her body began to convulse, her features contorting as a low growl escaped her throat. Michael and Elena watched in horror as the nurse's form shifted, her skin growing rough and coarse, her limbs elongating into something grotesque and inhuman.
But before we dive deeper into Leo's tragic journey, I want to take a quick moment to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this story. And hey, here's something exciting. Subscribe within the next month, and you'll automatically be entered into a $50 lucky draw. Who knows? You might just be our lucky winner. And you definitely don't want to miss out on our upcoming crazy stories. Now, back to Leo's tale.
In a matter of moments, the kind nurse had transformed into a snarling beast. The creature, driven by an uncontrollable rage, turned towards Elena and Michael, its eyes wild with fury. Michael instinctively stepped in front of his wife, shielding her from the creature's wrath, while the room erupted into chaos. Doctors and nurses rushed in, their faces masks of fear and confusion as they tried to restrain the beast. Elena clutched Leo tightly to her chest, her mind reeling with disbelief. She couldn't understand what was happening, how a moment of pure joy had turned into a nightmare. As the medical staff struggled to contain the creature, Michael realized that the transformation had begun the moment the nurse looked into Leo's eyes. It was as if some dark force had been unleashed, turning a gentle woman into a monstrous beast. He knew then that something was terribly wrong. The hospital staff finally managed to sedate the beast, but not before several people were injured in the struggle. The creature was taken away, and the room fell into a stunned silence. Elena, trembling with fear, looked down at Leo, who was now quietly resting in her arms, seemingly unaware of the havoc he had just caused. Michael turned to the doctor, his voice shaky as he demanded, "What's happening? What's wrong with our son?" The doctor, still in shock, could only shake his head. I don't know. This is beyond anything we've ever seen." The gravity of the situation began to sink in. Leo's eyes, those deep, intense blue eyes, were not normal. They possessed a terrible power, one that could transform anyone who looked into them into a raging beast. Fear and panic gripped Elena and Michael as they realized the danger their son posed. They were terrified, not only for their own safety, but for the safety of everyone around them. The joy of Leo's birth had been shattered by the realization that their child carried a dark and uncontrollable force within him. Desperate to protect Leo and the world from the power of his eyes, Elena and Michael made the difficult decision to keep their son isolated. They would tell no one of what had happened that night, and they would do whatever it took to keep Leo hidden from the world. On his 17th birthday, Leo made a wish. It wasn't for anything extravagant. He just wanted to experience the world, go to school, make friends, and live a normal life. His parents, moved by his simple wish and determined to find a solution, took him to a renowned scientist who specialized in rare conditions. Dr. Grant had spent years studying cases like Leo's and believed he could help. After extensive research and experimentation, Dr. Grant developed a pair of custom color lenses that would shield others from the effects of Leo's gaze. These lenses were designed to filter out the dangerous elements in Leo's eyes, allowing him to interact with the world without causing harm. Before Leo could start his new life, Dr. Grant insisted on testing the lenses. "We need to be certain they work before you step out into the world," he explained. Leo agreed, understanding the gravity of the situation. One evening, Dr. Grant and Leo ventured out together. The streets were quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. They chose to test the lenses in a less crowded area to minimize risk. Leo was nervous, his heart pounding as they approached a small open cafe. Dr. Grant reassured him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Remember, just keep calm. If anything feels off, close your eyes immediately," Dr. Grant instructed. Leo nodded, adjusting the lenses on his eyes as they entered the cafe. The warm, inviting atmosphere seemed a world away from the isolation he had known. As they walked in, Leo felt a mix of excitement and fear. He had never been this close to strangers before. The barista behind the counter greeted them with a smile. Leo hesitated, but Dr. Grant encouraged him to order something. Leo took a deep breath and approached the counter, locking eyes with the barista. She didn't flinch or change at all. Relief washed over him as he realized the lenses were working. They ordered coffee and sat down at a table. As they sat there, Dr. Grant observed everyone around them, looking for any signs of trouble. But everything was normal. Leo was overjoyed, a wide grin spreading across his face. "It works," he whispered, hardly able to believe it. Dr. Grant smiled, pleased with the success of his invention. As they left the cafe, Leo felt an overwhelming sense of hope. For the first time, he could imagine a life beyond the confines of his home. With the lenses proven to work, Leo began attending the local high school. He quickly made friends and even joined the throwball team, where he excelled. But it wasn't just school and sports that made his new life special. It was a girl named Lily. Lily was in several of Leo's classes, and from the moment they met, he was captivated by her. She was kind, funny, and had a warmth that drew him in. They spent more and more time together, studying, laughing, and talking about their dreams. For Leo, it was like living in a dream. Everything he had ever wished for was coming true. As the weeks passed, Leo and Lily grew closer. They would often meet after school at the cafe where Leo and Dr. Grant had tested the lenses. It became their special place. Leo found himself falling deeply in love with her, and it wasn't long before he confessed his feelings. To his amazement, Lily felt the same way. Their relationship blossomed, and for a while, Leo was happier than he had ever been. He was thriving in school, excelling in sports, and in love with a girl who made him feel like the world was finally within his reach. One day, during a particularly intense throwball match, tragedy struck. Leo was in the middle of the game, focused on winning when the ball came flying towards him. It was a powerful throw, and before Leo could react, it hit him square in the face. He stumbled, feeling the impact. It was a rainy evening. My parents were on their way back from a charity event they had organized, always giving, always thinking of others. The roads were slick, visibility was low, and every driver was cautious, except one. "Hi, I'm Rose. This is my story. Before I continue, Little Kitty will offer you $50 to one lucky person who subscribe in the next 7 days. Tell your father, mother, brother, sister to subscribe now." A truck driver, later discovered to be under the influence, lost control of his vehicle on a sharp turn. The massive truck skidded across the road, its tires failing to grip the wet asphalt. My parents' car was in its path, and there was no time to react. The collision was brutal and unforgiving. The front of the car crumpled like paper under the force of the impact. The sound of shattering glass and twisting metal filled the air, a cacophony of destruction. Emergency services arrived quickly, but it was too late. My parents were pronounced dead at the scene, their lives cut short in an instant. The truck driver survived with minor injuries, a cruel twist of fate. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. One moment I had a family, the next I was alone, standing in the rain, staring at the wreckage that had been my life. I had to navigate the overwhelming task of handling my parents' affairs, including dealing with their insurance policies. My parents, meticulous and responsible, had invested significant amounts in various insurance plans, believing it would secure my future if anything happened to them. When I reached out to the insurance company, I was initially hopeful. I thought the funds would provide a safety net in this turbulent time. However, my hope quickly turned into a nightmare. The company representative was cold and indifferent, flipping through the pages of the policy with a practiced air of detachment. "We're sorry for your loss," he said mechanically. "But it appears there was a clause in the policy that voids the claim in the event of death caused by a traffic accident involving a commercial vehicle." I was stunned. "What do you mean? That can't be right. My parents paid into this for years." He sighed, as if he had delivered this news 1,000 times. "I'm afraid it's quite clear in the contract. They would have needed a supplementary policy to cover such an event. Without it, we cannot disperse the funds." I tried to argue, to plead, but it was no use. With only a few months left until graduation, my world had been turned upside down. The financial security I had relied upon was gone, and the burden of survival weighed heavily on my shoulders. I had no food, no money, and no clear path forward. The pressure to finish my education while dealing with these overwhelming challenges felt nearly impossible. One evening, after another long day of fruitless job hunting, I found myself wandering the city streets, lost in thought. My stomach growled, reminding me of my immediate need for food. Just then, I noticed a small cafe. It was a cozy, family-run place, and the warmth radiating from inside was inviting. But I saw the manager fired the lady who was helping. I went and asked for any job position available. She offered me a job, but it just met my basic needs. The final semester of high school was upon us, and our group project for history class was one of the last hurdles before graduation. We had been assigned a comprehensive presentation. Given my recent hardships, I hoped that working with my classmates would provide some much-needed distraction and a sense of normalcy. Our group consisted of 5 students. Sarah suggested that we should work on the project at each other's houses to make the process more enjoyable and efficient. Everyone agreed enthusiastically, except me. With no home to host and my current financial struggles, I felt a pang of anxiety but kept quiet. Our first group session was scheduled at Sarah's house. I had been there once before, but this time, the grandeur of her home struck me even more. Walking through the front door felt like entering a museum. The walls were adorned with expensive artwork, and the rooms were filled with elegant furniture and delicate decorations. It was a stark contrast to my own current situation, and a mix of envy and desperation gnawed at me. We gathered in the spacious living room, spreading our materials across the massive coffee table. As the others settled in and started discussing their research, I was very anxious to have some home tour. In between the discussion, I asked where the washroom is, and I started exploring each room. As I passed by, I noticed a stack of papers on a side table, partially hidden under a magazine. Glancing at them, I saw it looked like bank account details. What if I could access that money, even just a fraction of it? It could solve so many of my problems. Before I could fully consider the consequences, I pulled out my phone and discreetly took a picture of the documents. My heart raced with a mix of fear and adrenaline, but no one seemed to notice. After reaching home, I tried to get some money with the picture I took. But to my surprise, it just worked. I was very afraid, and waited few weeks before I do the next transfer. Slowly, I started transferring large amount of money, but nobody complained about it. I become more confident. I become rich. I started renovating my house and bought a new luxurious car. Jack asked me one day, "How am I getting so much money?" I said it was my parents' hard work. It was that day my life turned upside down. There was a large party happening in Sarah's house. I was so excited. The party was in full swing when I arrived. The house was filled with music, laughter, and students enjoying themselves. I started dancing with a handsome guy, which felt like I'm not alone in this world. The next day, when I woke up, I saw everyone lying on the floor and sleeping. I gave my phone number to the handsome guy. But then I realized I lost my phone. I started searching everywhere, but I couldn't find. My friends helped me in searching, but to my bad luck, I couldn't find. They said, "Don't worry, you can afford a new phone." But I said I wanted the same old phone, but there was no use. I decided to leave the party and head home, feeling more anxious than ever. The next morning, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing there. My heart sank. "Are you Jenny?" one of them asked. I nodded, feeling my stomach churn. "We're here to arrest you on charges of attempted theft and unauthorized access to financial information." As they led me away, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of betrayal. It quickly became clear that the party had been a trap set by Sarah. She must have taken my phone and alerted the authorities. I was terrified, knowing that my desperate actions had finally caught up with me. In court, I met with a public defender assigned to my case. The evidence was damning, and my confession to Sarah only made things worse. Despite my lawyer's best efforts, I was sentenced to 6 months in jail. The reality of my situation hit me hard, and I felt my world crumbling around me. After being released from jail, I was determined to turn my life around. I threw myself into my community service and began to find stability through part-time work. During this period, Mr. John, the lawyer who had helped reduce my sentence, continued to mentor and guide me. One day, during one of our meetings, Mr. John brought up the topic of the insurance company that had taken my parents' wealth. "I've been thinking about your case," he said, his expression thoughtful. "The way the insurance company denied your claim seems highly questionable. I believe they might have cheated you out of your rightful benefits." Mr. John filed a lawsuit against the insurance company on my behalf. The legal battle was intense, but Mr. John's dedication and expertise were unwavering. After several months, the court ruled in our favor. The insurance company was ordered to pay out the full amount of the policy. The victory was overwhelming. The funds provided a much-needed financial cushion, allowing me to focus on rebuilding my life without the constant pressure of financial instability. During this tumultuous time, Mr. John and I grew closer. His unwavering support and belief in me had been a lifeline through my darkest moments. We spent more time together outside of our legal meetings, sharing our stories, dreams, and hopes for the future. He held my hands, looking into my eyes with love and determination. "You've overcome so much," he said softly. "I want to be with you for every step of the journey ahead. Will you marry me?" Tears of joy filled my eyes as I nodded, unable to find the words. "Yes," I finally managed to say, my voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, I will." We exchanged rings in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. Together, we looked forward to a future filled with possibilities, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Mr. John had not only helped me reclaim my past, but had also given me a future filled with hope, love, and unwavering support.